this for a long, long time, and with COVID and everything, it's been difficult. But we're finally here. Finally, at Santa Sabina, and this is great. I'm really looking forward to having a little walk around with you, and I know we're going to start off here. But tell me, first of all, how long have you been living here in Rome?
I've been living in Rome for 33 years.
Wow, wow. And
beautiful city.
Oh, it is amazing. You could live here, you could spend a lifetime and still never see everything.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many things to see that are even off the beaten track that not everyone thinks of going to see.
Oh, absolutely. And you're a native of Dublin?
Yes, yes, I am.
Absolutely. You've still got your accent, I can hear.
Oh, good.
That lovely accent. And you are a tour guide here in Rome, so you're an expert of all the places that people should go to see.
Huh? Yes.
Both the well-known and also the less well-known.
Exactly. We're trying to promote places that are not so well-known because the other places are so busy or queuing. It's difficult to get tickets, so it's great to try and showcase some of the lesser-known parts of the city.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted. I am really looking forward to what we're going to look at today. We're starting off here in this beautiful basilica. This is a place that you know well. This is the Basilica of Santa Sabina.
Exactly. It was founded in 425 AD. By Peter of Illyria, and it is still a very, very traditional interior today. They actually worked hard to bring it back to its original interior. And these doors, for example, are going back to the 5th century. These are a completely unique remnant of the past from the beautiful cypress wood, and they show scenes from the life of our Lord and from the life of Moses. So we start up at the top left with one of the actual first scenes of our Lord on the cross, the first crucifixion, with the eyes open and no halo yet. They hadn't even developed that. This is such early Christian iconography.
Really.
And if you can come a little bit closer here, then you can see that you have the healing of the man born blind, 3 of the early miracles. Then you have the loaves and the fishes, and then you have the wedding at Cana, when they called for the servants to fill the jars, and they filled them with water, and then it became the most delicious wine. And then down below you can see our Lord rebuking Thomas, who had to touch the wound, remember? And then you've got scenes from the life of Moses, the early life of Moses. And then we have our Lord before Pilate here on that first column. And then we have the women with the angel at the tomb. And then more scenes from the life of Moses here. And then you have our Lord appearing to the two Marys after his resurrection. And then you have the acclamation scene down here below. It's all beautifully carved in wood. Can you imagine that it's survived all these centuries?
Absolutely, it's stupendous. The detail in it is really quite extraordinary.
It is.
And it's so well preserved as
exactly. So we just go on there. There is the Epiphany with the 3 Magi who came to bring their gifts. You've got the Ascension scene. You've got the denial of Peter. You see the rooster there on the right-hand side who's going to crow 3 times. And then you have more scenes from the life, from the Exodus. You can see the crossing of the Red Sea here. Wow. And then over here then is the triumph of the church, that big scene. And then you have Habakkuk flying to Daniel. The first example we have, one of the earliest, of an angel with wings. And then we've got the ascension of Elijah. You see the chariots of fire there. So this is just so rich, this door here.
Absolutely.
And then we can see that they have already opened the main doors here, and we can walk inside and get the full impression of what it's like to enter.
I'm in awe of this door. I mean, it was, I guess, instructional by nature, isn't that right?
Exactly.
But you really feel, you know, the power and the majesty of the presence of not of the door and the church. You really feel the majesty of it as you're walking through.
Exactly. Wow.
So,
isn't it just amazing?
Absolutely.
And these columns are actually in the original marble from a temple to Juno Regina, a very important temple to the wife of Jupiter. And they were brought here and put in the church. And this was what was called a titulus. It was a church that would have been a bit like a parish church today, and dedicated to Santa Sabina, who's believed to have been converted to Christianity through her servant Seraphim. And they're both buried under the main altar here. And we've got beautiful marble on the floor, and we have a lovely marble decoration above the columns, which shows us the images of the Eucharist, you know, the paten and the chalice. And the windows that give this very beautiful diffuse light are actually made of selenite. And that gives you that lovely light inside, very, very beautiful and golden. Soft, exactly.
Beautiful.
And then up here we have the main altar. And we'll go and have a look now in a moment. But before we go on, we just wanted to show you the inscription up here, which is to the church in beautiful gold and blue mosaic letters. And we have two female figures which represent the two strands in Christianity. So that's the church that came from the Jewish community, the circumscribed, and then on the other side it's from the Gentiles. So that's represented by St. Peter and St. Paul, who are the patron saints of Rome to this day, celebrated on the 29th of June. And so that goes back to the year 425. Incredible that it's still so
incredible, and it looks so fresh.
It looks
doesn't
as if it was done the other day.
Absolutely. One of the things that really strikes me about this church is that it's so very, very rich in decor and colour and so well preserved, and yet it feels understated. It feels very, very rich, but yet you're not blown away by a complete blast of elaborate or exaggerated decor in gold like you might see in some other churches.
Exactly. A lot of churches in Rome were rebuilt or refurbished during the period of the Baroque, so they're very elaborate. What they were trying to do here is get back to what it must have been like to be an early Christian in Rome. You could imagine after all those years of persecution, and all of a sudden then you have the Edict of Milan with Constantine, and you're able to build churches. And so they choose the Basilica form, which is with the columns that divide up one major nave from two smaller ones. And again, the ceiling is just so simple, with the star representing Our Lady, the 8-pointed star, just a simple wooden ceiling. And then we have the very unusual and unique burial tomb of one of the orders of the Dominicans, because this church was given to the Dominicans in 1222. So it's a very old church for them. And we mustn't forget that this is the church where Pope Francis comes every year on Ash Wednesday to celebrate Mass, and that's the first of the Lenten stations, and it's very famous for that reason as well.
So it's of great significance.
Just to show the tomb here, this is very, very peaceful. His name was Munoz, and he was one of the famous priors of the Dominican order in Rome in the 14th century. But it's just very beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Very solemn and very moving.
Absolutely, absolutely. Beautiful, and yet there's it's beautifully constructed but understated. That's right. There's a simplicity which adds even more to its impact. Isn't that right?
Exactly. Now here's the choir stalls. They go back to fragments from the 5th to the 9th century, and you can see these very beautiful, almost Celtic symbols.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The columns, the palms that would be very typical of the Egyptian world.
It's almost like a St. Bridget's cross, isn't it?
It's just so beautifully done and
absolutely.
so well preserved. And this idea of the stone inside the church, which is so beautifully carved, and the Easter candle holder you can see over there with the lovely twist to the pattern, and the pulpits here as well. And then up here we can see a painting which replaces the original mosaic here, and you see our Lord with the apostles and the saints, and then down below you can see the sheep, which represent the flock, which represents the Christian community who are drinking from the rivers of the Gospels, the 4 Gospels. And you can see just this beautiful intimacy between the different figures there as our Lord turns his head and preaches to them.
Absolutely beautiful.
Isn't that just
absolutely
gorgeous?
Beautiful. And you're saying that this replaced a mosaic, the mosaic that was originally.
We have some beautiful mosaics still in Rome, but in this case, unfortunately, it has been lost. But it still gives us the same idea, and this beautiful image as you come in through the church, and then more apostles on the triumphal arch with the 2 cities of Bethlehem and Jerusalem.
Oh, beautiful. And well, in actual fact, this scene and how it's been represented is much more in keeping with the quietness, the quiet, understated feel of the Basilica.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly. And it's just such a beautiful place, as you can see, so peaceful, a few visitors. We're up on the Aventine Hill here, and we're going to show you a few more things on the hill. It's very close to Rome, but very close to the centre, but it's a little bit outside on the other 7 hills.
Wonderful. I've heard so much about it. Will you tell me about this door, please?
This is the famous keyhole in the main door into the central headquarters of the Knights of Malta. And there's a surprise when you look through. I won't tell you what it is yet.
I've heard there's a surprise. I'm dying to know.
Well, it's a very beautiful little view through, and we can just see some of the symbols of the Knights of Malta here. You can see the famous cross with the 8 little tails. Now that's originally the Amalfi cross, when Amalfi was a maritime republic, and it represents the 8 beatitudes or virtues of the order. And you can see the prows of the ships, you can see their weapons, and you can also see the little tower there in different places, which is the symbol, along with the 2-headed eagle, of the Pope at the time, Clement XIII, who is Pope Rezzonico. And you can see that this is actually extraterritorial. This is not part of Italy. It is part of the property of the Knights of Malta, who were set up originally to look after the pilgrims going to the Holy Land. And then, of course, they did have to also protect them as well. But they started off as a hospital order, taking care of all of those who travelled for thousands of miles on foot to go and visit the Holy Sepulchre. So we're nearly there now. There's always a little bit of a queue. And then around the piazza we can see they're actually restoring it. This is all work by Piranesi, a very beautiful work that he had etched. And you see the way you've got these spirals here, which are there in the Si siamo in fila, grazie. And these are very old. You can see them on the temple, for example, dedicated to Venus at the time of the Julius Caesar himself. And it's the acanthus. We might talk about that another time.
Oh yes, the acanthus leaves on the Corinthian capitals.
Exactly,
yes,
which are so famous. And so there you can see the embassy of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta at the Italian Republic. So this is their actual diplomatic representation.
Okay, so
Let's have a look through there now.
oh, it's beautiful. It's what a surprise. It's beautiful.
Isn't that gorgeous?
It's beautiful. Okay, proviamo. Okay.
To the Giardino degli Aranci, the orange garden. These are the bitter oranges, but they're delicious. If you mix one bitter with one normal orange, they get this most amazing juice.
Oh, wow. Can we pick them?
We can't really, but if they fall off the tree, then in January when they're ripe, then you can pick them up afterwards.
I love it, I love it.
And so this is the Aventine Hill. It's one of the 7 hills of Rome, and it may be called after the word for a bird in Latin, ave, maybe, because in that time they used to follow the flight of the birds, and that was very important. We've got a word in English, auspicious, which comes from ave specchio, watching the birds, because it was so important what direction they were going in, how many there were. And that's presumably how they actually founded the city on the other hill on the other side. We'll show you that in a moment, the Palatine. And so here we are on the Aventine. It's a very peaceful hill, and it was actually associated with the plebeians in ancient times. They were the lowest level of Roman society, and they had their meeting places here. And it was a little bit outside the city, overlooking the river. And later on it became the home of convents and churches. And now it's actually a very upmarket area because it's right in the heart of the city, and it's beautifully peaceful. You could be in a little country village. So we're going to go now and show you the orange garden and the view, the panoramic view, which is from the terrace here.
Wow, can't wait.
Hill, but not one of the 7, on the far bank of the Tiber. And there is a very famous church, the Church of San Pietro in Montorio, which is where Hugh O'Neill and Hugh O'Donnell are buried after the flight of the Earls. And above that then there's the Aqua Paola, a beautiful fountain which marked the end of an aqueduct coming from the north of Rome, from the Lake Bracciano actually. And that's all the Janiculum still with Garibaldi. Now he's all scaffolded at the moment. They're restoring his statue. And then further over on the right is the famous landmark, which is the one that shines in red, white and green, the colours of the Italian flag. It's the lighthouse given to the Roman people by the South Americans. And then further over we're looking at the absolutely stunning dome of Michelangelo over the tomb of St. Peter. That's inside the Vatican. And there's a little ball at the top, I'm not sure if you can see it from here, but that is where you can fit 23 people.
Wow.
And then you can see all of the Vatican museums to the right of the dome. It looks like quite a big distance, but of course the Vatican is the smallest sovereign state in the world. And that niche there, where you can see a little balcony on the top and a big niche there, a big opening, that is where the pine cone is inside the Vatican museums. And that's the summer palace, and then the original palace was closer. And here we can see the lovely little pointed top of the bell tower of San Crisogono, a very important church in Trastevere. That's that area there on the right bank. And then further over we have a whole series of domes from different churches, including on the way the Castel Sant'Angelo with the angel on top. And above that the Vatican Observatory on the Monte Mario hill. And then further over you've got 3 domes almost in a row. The furthest away is the St. Agnes in the Piazza Navona. Then there is the Church of St. Andrew, where Tosca begins, the famous opera. And then San Carlo, that's 3 in a row. Further over then is the square base dome of the synagogue. And in between those is a very beautiful, like an ice cream cone, that's Sant'Ivo alla Sapienza. And then further over we can see a little glimpse of the dome of the Pantheon. It's hidden by a little tower. You can just see the side of the dome, the widest dome ever built in the ancient world. And then further over then the beautiful dome, which is two-toned, of the Gesù Church, where St. Ignatius is buried. And further over again then you have the two turrets and the white building, which is the Villa Medici, the French Academy. And then the Spanish steps themselves with the two towers of the Church of the Trinity. And then we've got the beautiful hill, the Capitoline, very important Roman hill here, with the famous Campidoglio buildings. And we're looking at the winged victories, the Nike statues with their chariots on top of the Vittorio Emanuele monument. And then a bit further over, more of the Roman hills. But isn't the view just stunning? And you can follow the course of the river following the trees. You see it makes big loops as it goes up northwards from here and then down here on the left to the sea. Isn't it an amazing view?
Extraordinary, and I'm in awe of your knowledge and being able to literally describe as we go along, you know, what we can see as I guess the eternal city, you know, picking out these famous landmarks that I hope in times to come we'll have a chance to go and visit. And
Exactly, together we'll go and explore a little bit more.
Absolutely, this has been absolutely fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Have to say that was just so fascinating and so interesting. Thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed this morning of walking around and chatting, and I really look forward to doing it again sometime.
Well, I hope we'll get the chance.
Yes.
Really, we've been looking for this opportunity for so long.
Absolutely.
And here then is just to finish, we've come down from the Aventine Hill and we're looking over the Circus Maximus to the Palatine Hill, which is another story altogether, and we're looking at the remains of the palace of the emperors that date back to the 1st century. So just to finish here, we've got the statue of Giuseppe Mazzini, a wonderful Italian statesman, and we've just actually passed through what's left of the Rose Garden, and that's another place we might come a different time when they are open, because there's absolutely beautiful roses inside. And this is really the end of the Aventine Hill for today.
How beautiful.
And it's just so lovely to spend this time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you. It's been just lovely. A lovely, delightful morning. Thank you.